Minutes after saying, "I do," Miranda's fairy tale wedding turned into a brutal crime scene when her new husband demanded her $12 million family business for his mistress. When she refused to sign, he didn't just break her heart, he struck her across the face and threw her out into the rainy street in her shredded wedding gown. But David made one fatal mistake. He forgot that Miranda was an heiress for a reason, and she was already 3 steps ahead of his betrayal. But to truly understand it, you need to hear the story directly from Miranda herself.
Hi, my name is Miranda, and for 3 years I believed I had found the one. I'm a woman who values loyalty above all else, perhaps to a fault. I spent my life building my father's legacy, the Miller textile empire, and I thought David was the partner who would help me carry that weight. Looking back at the photos of me smiling in my $15,000 custom lace gown, I look like a stranger. I didn't know then that the man holding my hand was actually holding a dagger to my back. I met David when he was at his lowest. He was a consultant with a brilliant smile and exactly $42,300 in predatory student loan debt. He told me he felt less than a man because of his financial struggles. Being the giver that I am, I didn't just comfort him, I wrote a check. Within 6 months of dating, I had cleared his record so we could start our lives clean. That should have been my first warning, but I was blinded by the way he looked at me. Or rather, the way I thought he looked at me. Once he was debt-free, the upgrades started. I moved him into my $2.5 million penthouse overlooking the park. For his 30th birthday, I didn't just throw a party. I handed him the keys to a custom Black Edition SUV, fully loaded, paid for by my corporate account. I wanted him to feel powerful. I wanted him to feel like he belonged at my side in the boardroom. Then came Sienna. David insisted he needed a high-level executive assistant to handle his growing responsibilities within my firm. I didn't blink twice when he asked for a $90,000 starting salary for her. Even when I noticed the way they whispered in the hallways, or how she always seemed to know his coffee order better than I did, I brushed it off. I told myself I was being a paranoid boss instead of a supportive partner. My father's dying wish was for me to watch the books and watch the snakes, but I was too busy planning a wedding to notice the viper already sleeping in my bed. The wedding was supposed to be the crowning achievement of my life. My father wasn't there to walk me down the aisle, but I felt him in every thread of my $15,000 gown. I remember the weight of the lace, the way the light caught the diamonds in my hair, and the look of pure, unadulterated love on David's face as we stood at the altar. We had 300 guests, a 12-tier cake, and a vow exchange that brought half the room to tears. I felt like the luckiest woman on earth. But the moment the heavy oak doors of the $4,000 a night presidential suite clicked shut behind us, the air changed. The warmth in David's eyes didn't just fade, it evaporated. He didn't even wait for me to sit down. He didn't try to help me with the 84 silk buttons running down the back of my dress. He walked straight to the mahogany desk, pulled a thick manila envelope from his tuxedo jacket, and tossed it onto the bed like a piece of trash. "Sign it," he said. His voice was flat, devoid of the melody he'd used for his vows just 3 hours earlier. I picked up the papers, my hands trembling. It was a transfer of ownership and a power of attorney grant. It stated that I was handing over full operational control and 51% of the Miller textile empire to Sienna. Not to David, to his assistant. "David, what is this?" I asked, a nervous laugh escaping my throat. "Is this some kind of sick wedding night joke? Sienna? She's an employee. This is my father's life's work. This is $12 million in assets." "It's not a joke, Miranda," he snapped, stepping into my personal space. He smelled like the expensive scotch I'd paid for at the open bar. "You're a woman. You're emotional. You're soft. You've spent 3 years playing CEO while I did the heavy lifting in the background. Sienna knows the business. She knows what I need. You're going to sign those over, and you're going to retire to being a submissive wife. No more board meetings, no more checks. Just stay home and look pretty." I looked at him, truly seeing him for the first time. The mask hadn't just slipped. It had shattered. "I will never sign this," I whispered. "I'll see you in divorce court before I give you or that woman a single cent of my father's legacy." The sound of the slap was louder than the music at our reception. It was a sharp, stinging blow that caught me right on the cheekbone, sending me spiraling onto the silk duvet. My head throbbed, and the taste of copper filled my mouth. Before I could even scream, he grabbed my arm with a grip that left bruises instantly. "I'm the head of this family now," he hissed. He dragged me across the suite, my expensive lace catching on the furniture and tearing with a sickening sound. He opened the suite door and shoved me out into the public hallway. I stumbled, falling onto the cold carpet in my tattered finery. "Don't come back until you're ready to be useful," he barks. He grabbed my $2,000 designer heels and tossed them at my head before slamming the door and engaging the deadbolt. I sat there on the hallway carpet, the silence of the hotel corridor feeling heavier than the $15,000 dress now ruined around my legs. My cheek was burning, a physical reminder of the man I thought I knew. I waited for the sob to come, for the breakdown that usually follows a betrayal this deep. But instead of a sob, I felt a shuddering, icy wave of clarity. The tears didn't just stop, they dried instantly against the heat of my skin. I looked at the heavy oak door of the presidential suite. Behind it, David was likely pouring himself a glass of my vintage Cristal, probably already calling Sienna to tell her the job was almost done. He thought I was a broken girl shivering in a hallway. He thought his slap had cowed me. He forgot that you don't build a textile empire by being weak. I reached into the hidden pocket I'd insisted the seamstress sew into the folds of my gown, a place for my phone, since I never liked being disconnected. My hands weren't shaking anymore. I didn't call my bridesmaids, and I didn't call the police. Not yet. I called the man who had been more of a father to me than David had ever been a husband, Mr. Harrison, my family's lead counsel. The phone picked up on the second ring. "Miranda? It's nearly 1 a.m. Is everything all right?" "Mr. Harrison," I said, my voice sounding like sharpened steel. "The loyalty test we discussed 2 weeks ago, the one I told you was unnecessary because I trusted him, it just failed. He hit me. He tried to force the transfer to Sienna, and then he threw me out of the suite." There was a long pause on the other end, followed by a low, dangerous sigh. "I'm so sorry, Miranda, but you remember what we did? The precautions we took just in case your heart was blinder than your head?" "I remember," I replied, standing up and ripping the heavy, dirtied train off my dress so I could move freely. I kicked the designer heels David had thrown at me into the trash bin by the elevator. I'm done being the victim. I'm ready to be the CEO. Start the sequence. I stood in that hallway, looking down at my reflection in the polished elevator doors. I looked like a disaster, but I felt like a predator. David thought he had checked me, but he didn't realize I had been playing on a different board for months. "Step 1 is live," Mr. Harrison's voice crackled through the phone. I pulled up my banking app. With 3 taps, I deactivated every secondary corporate card associated with the Miller Textile account. Inside that suite, David and Sienna were likely in the middle of a $10,000 celebration. Vintage wine, beluga caviar, and God knows what else. Within seconds, those cards turned into worthless plastic. I could almost hear the sound of the waiter's declined machine from here. "Step 2, I whispered. I logged into the private security feed for the presidential suite. 2 weeks ago, under the guise of pre-wedding security, I had a high-definition nanny cam installed in the living area of the suite. I watched the screen as David laughed, leaning over the desk to kiss Sienna. I watched him boast about how easy it was to break me. I hit save and forward. In one click, that footage, along with the crystal-clear recording of him striking me and dragging me to the door, was sent to his mother, his business partners, and every major investor in our network. His reputation didn't just catch fire, it turned to ash in real time. "And the best part, Miranda?" Mr. Harrison asked. "The officiant," I replied, a cold smile touching my lips. "That minister who stood at the altar and pronounced us man and wife, he wasn't a man of the cloth. He was a retired Shakespearean actor I'd hired as a contingency plan when David refused to sign the final updated prenup. The marriage license David signed with such smug satisfaction was a high-quality prop. Legally, David wasn't my husband. He was just a guy in a rented tuxedo who had just committed a felony. I walked toward the valet stand, my head held high. Repossess the SUV, I told the valet manager, handing him the spare key from my clutch. The ownership is corporate, and the driver is no longer authorized. I walked back toward the presidential suite, but I wasn't alone. 2 police officers stood flanking me, and Mr. Harrison was right behind, holding a briefcase that contained David's total ruin. I didn't knock. I used the master key I'd reclaimed from the front desk. The door swung open to a scene of absolute chaos. David was red-faced, screaming into his phone at a credit card representative, while Sienna was frantically trying to shove a bottle of champagne into her designer bag before the hotel staff could reclaim it. They both froze when they saw me. "Miranda, thank God," David stammered, his voice cracking. "There's been a mistake. The cards are blocked, and the valet won't give me the keys to my car." "It's not your car, David, and I'm not your wife," I said, stepping into the room. The blood drained from his face as Mr. Harrison stepped forward. "The man who married you today was a paid actor, David. There is no legal marriage. You have no claim to this room, this company, or this woman. What you do have, however, is a pending charge for domestic assault." I held up my phone, showing him the 4K footage of the slap. His eyes went wide. He turned to Sienna, reaching for her hand, but she swiped it away. "Wait, the factory papers aren't legal?" she shrieked, her voice high and grating. "You told me I was a partner. You told me we were set." When she realized the money was gone, she didn't even look at him. She grabbed her coat and headed for the door, muttering, "I never loved you anyway, you pathetic idiot." David was handcuffed right there, sobbing into his expensive silk lapels as the officers led him out past the hotel guests who had gathered to watch the fall of the golden groom. I didn't watch him go. I sat down at the table, picked up a piece of the $100 an ounce Wagyu beef he'd ordered on my dime, and took a bite. It was cold, but it tasted like victory. The best wedding gift I ever got wasn't the diamonds or the dress. It was the slap that finally opened my eyes.
What a chilling reminder that the person sharing your bed can sometimes be the one plotting your downfall. But I want to hear from you. At what point should Miranda have walked away? And do you think David got what he truly deserved? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Please keep in mind that this story was a dramatization created specifically for societal reform and to raise awareness about the warning signs of financial and emotional abuse. We share these fictional scenarios as a cautionary tale. Please do not repeat these toxic behaviors or legal schemes in your own lives. Our goal is to empower you with knowledge, not to provide a roadmap for revenge. In the end, karma always finds its way to the truth, and justice isn't just about winning, it's about reclaiming your worth. If you learned something valuable from Miranda's journey today, please subscribe and hit the bell icon to join our community for new stories every single day.